Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to then introduce the PowerPoint for you. So I will share my screen with you and hopefully you'll be able to see everything. So hopefully that should come through to you now.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through then our briefing. Oh, okay. So this is the pre-approval briefing that we're doing, led by Larry and myself as your LCTD quality team. So the purpose of today's session is to introduce the team to you and so that you can understand our role and how we're going to support you through the approval process. I'm going to explain the process a little bit so that you're aware of what's happening, and then we're going to focus on introducing the learner journey and the different stages that we need to be focusing on. And then there'll be an opportunity to explore the learner management system towards the end, so you know how you can create your learners, how you can manage those on the system. So if we look then at the approval team, so the LCD approval team is made up of Larry and myself, and we're quality assurance professionals. So we have a huge range of experience in supporting and developing new and existing centres with their training delivery. So you've got our contact details there for the main centre at Roma House and our key email address and phone numbers. And then at the bottom, you've got the direct dial numbers for Larry and for myself. So if you've got any queries or questions or concerns, get hold of us. So the approval process then. There are some key stages to the awarding body approval process. So initially we request the approval for the qualifications that we're interested in and for the centre approval. And Larry's already been through that process and we're in conversation with the awarding body. And so at this stage, we're now preparing our centre file. So in old times, that would have been a nice paper-based ring binder in the centre with all the evidence in it. But obviously now we're looking to more electronic version and preparing for the EQA to sample that to award us the approval. So I will touch on some of the areas that we're going to find supporting documentation for around management systems, the resources we have in place, how we're going to actually deliver and assess the qualifications and that quality assurance process. So once we've prepared all this documentation, we'll be in touch with an EQA, so an external quality assurer, and they are allocated by the awarding body, and they will go through all our supporting documentation. They'll talk with us, with potentially assessors, the management team from centre, and understand how we're going to be delivering, and they will build all of that into a report. Now, if there's anything that we can't provide on the day, the EQA will actually create an action plan of anything that they need additional evidence for before they then provide us with the approval to deliver. So in a nutshell, that will be the approval process, and we're already at the stage of preparing that centre file and pulling together the supporting documentation. So I just wanted to touch on really some of the key stakeholders that are involved in the delivery of qualifications. So I've already mentioned the awarding body, the awarding organisation. So in this case, we're working with NCFE Cash, and I will take you onto their website so that you're aware of where you can find out more information for those. So NCFE's website is ncfe.org.uk. and they have all the information there to support delivery. The key areas that you'll want to go to are, if you hover over login, you can click on resources dashboard, and this will take you to the Qual Hub website. And on here, you can type in the qualification number that you will be delivering, or you can search by words for the qualification that you're going to be offering. And that will bring up more details about that qualification. So I believe one of the first ones we'll be looking at is the level 3 diploma in adult care. And this will give you a breakdown of the qualification, so what it covers, who it's suitable for, how the qualification is structured, and how it should be assessed. And then if you can scroll down further to the bottom of the page, you will then have the qualification specification. So this is one of the key documents that you'll need to download so that you're confident with how it needs to be delivered within centre. So this should give you all the full details about the delivery of the qualification, and all the information will be in this bottom section here. Okay. So that's the awarding body. The next one I'm going to touch on is Ofqual. So Ofqual is the Office of Qualifications and Examinations Regulations, and they regulate the validity and safe delivery of qualifications, examinations and assessments in England. So this is their website here. So it's a government-based website, and this allows you to then search for the qualifications that you're going to be delivering. And the qualifications we're looking at are on the RQF. So the RQF is a regulated qualification framework, and this gives reassurance that the qualifications are officially recognised and that they are officially structured, so that you can have confidence in the qualifications that are being delivered. So again, you can use the Start Now button to actually search for the qualification and find out the details from Ofqual, who have regulated these qualifications for delivery. And it's important that we do use the regulated qualifications, because if you're going to use any government funding to deliver it, and I know Boris Johnson's spoken about the healthcare funding that should be coming our way, hopefully in the near future, then it will be important that we're using a regulated qualification to deliver to our learners in order to attract funding. So that's touching on Ofqual and the RQF. Another stakeholder that we need to have in mind when we're actually delivering these qualifications is the JCQ. Now, the JCQ are the Joint Council for Qualifications, and it's basically a membership organisation that represents the largest providers of qualifications in the UK. So from this, you can see the JCQ website here, jcq.org.uk. And this one, you can see that NCFE here are part of the JCQ. So the qualifications that we'll be delivering are going to be delivered in line with JCQ requirements. So they actually set out how the qualifications should be delivered, and important guidelines to follow in terms of regulations and so on. And you'll see on this page, which is their exams office page, you can actually find important information around the appeals procedures, exam room posters that need to be displayed if you're delivering exams, the ICE regulations, which are the instructions for conducting examinations, and then details around malpractice and so on. So again, a really useful website with lots of key documentation and forms in it that all pull together to ensure the quality and the validity of the qualifications that we're actually delivering. And then the last one that I will touch on as a key stakeholder to ensure the quality of our delivery is Ofsted. Now, I'm sure that you're very well aware of Ofsted and their work, but they are involved in inspecting services around the provision of education and skills for learners of all ages. So they will inspect and regulate the services that care for children and young people, but also the qualifications that we deliver as a training provider. So these are our key stakeholders, and when we're actually looking into the delivery, these are all the different requirements that we need to think about when we're actually putting the delivery together to ensure it's of the highest quality, and that we maintain that as we go through the learner journey. So I mentioned before about the approval process, and the approval process does actually focus on some key areas. So the first of these was the centre management systems. So we're going to need to make sure that we've got an organisational chart in place which identifies all the different roles that are going to be involved in the training delivery, from registration, who's going to be involved with the administration, through to the assessors and verifiers and the management as well. So if you've got an organisation chart that you can share with Larry, and if you haven't done so already, please make sure that you share that with him. And as part of the approval process, obviously we're supporting you with collating this information, making sure that your curriculum development plans are in place. So we're going to be supporting that. And obviously I've mentioned the qualification guidance. So there's a link here to the Qual Hub that I took you to on the NCFE website. So you can actually download the specifications for the qualifications you're going to be looking at delivering. So initially we're focusing on the NCFE level 3 and level 5 in adult care. And I will upload this presentation later, and there's the links in there to the different qualifications in the notes. So I'll show you where I'll upload that for you. The other area that we need to make sure is in place for the centre management systems section is the centre aims, policies and procedures. So we'll be supporting you to put all of those in place and make sure that everything that's required by the awarding body is there. Those will be in the learner management system that I'll show you in a minute in the library section by week commencing 22nd of November. And we need to just make sure that all delivery staff are going to be familiar with those before delivery commences. So that's centre management systems. The next section that we'll be looking at for the approval process is resources. So this is where we demonstrate that we've got all the staffing resources that we need in place. So we need to provide staff CVs, CPD logs and certificates to show that the staff are up to date and maintaining currency within the qualifications that they're going to be assessing and that we'll be verifying. We need to make sure that there's clear DBS checks in place. So we need to provide those to the EQA to give them that reassurance. But additionally, we also need to make sure that we've got sufficient accommodation and equipment in place. So this is making sure that we've got suitable rooms for the training to take place and resources such as flip charts or whiteboards so that we can do any tutor-led delivery. And obviously we will be making a lot of use of online systems as well. So again, I'll be showing you those shortly. The other area we need to make sure that we've got in place for the EQA, the external verifier visit, is to make sure we've got public and employee liability insurance certificates so that those can be sampled. So if you've got any of these documents and haven't shared them with Larry so far, please do send those over to him and he'll collate that into the centre file.
Okay.
So the next stage is going to be around the actual delivery and assessment of the qualifications. So for this one, we're going to make sure that there are clear schemes of work in place that explain how the qualification is broken down, what's going to be delivered, and then lesson plans to reflect that delivery to make sure it's suitably planned throughout the whole of the learner journey. We will put assessment plans in place to reflect the ongoing assessment throughout the qualification. So we'll be looking for formative assessment. So that's the assessment as we go through an ongoing assessment, and the summative assessment, which is kind of your end assessment. So learners will be building their portfolios and we're making sure that we're tracking that as they go throughout their whole course, the whole qualification. So we're not just back ending everything to the end and just doing one big bit of work at the end. It'll be that nice, gentle build up of that portfolio as we work through. We also need to provide IQA sampling plans, which will demonstrate how the IQA, the internal quality assurer, will actually make sure that the assessment's taking place, that the standards are being met, that it's mapping to the qualification specification, and then the IQA will carry out standardisation activities based on that. So we'll be putting the plans in place to show how we're planning for it to happen, and then the EQA can sample down the line how that's actually happening in reality. We're also going to put together induction packs so that we can welcome the learners. They know exactly what they're enrolling onto, what the requirements are, what awarding body requirements are in place, and they'll know exactly what the qualification's all about. So there'll be clear induction packs in place, and they'll have an individual learning plan which will support them throughout the journey, so they know exactly what they should be learning, what they should be doing at each stages, and it will track their starting points, their on-programme progress, and then where they're progressing on to and how the qualification will actually support that. And that's how we can track the quality of the journey for the learner, so that we can understand the impact that the training will be having on the learner and their career aspirations. We'll also make sure that we've got a learner contract in place so that the learner, the employer and the trainer all sign up to this and everyone knows what to expect from all parties. And they'll be making sure we've got those prior checks in place just to make sure that the learner doesn't already hold the qualification, or if they do have elements already, we can acknowledge any recognition of prior learning or prior accreditation that they may hold, and how that will impact their qualification that they're studying with us. One of the key elements that you'll need to consider is the safe and secure storage of materials and records. Obviously, we need to keep GDPR records in appropriate situations, so it's safe and secure at all times. So that might be locked cabinets on site. It's ensuring that anything we send electronically is suitably encrypted if it holds learner data, that we choose strong passwords for logging onto the learner management system. So again, we are thinking about all the different storage methods for learner details and how we're protecting those at all times. And the last element to prepare ready for the accreditation around delivery and assessment is around the exam regulations. So I've already mentioned some of the JCQ requirements. NCFE also have the regulations for the conduct of external assessment document, which we'll need to go through. But again, when we get to this stage, we're going to go through plenty of training and standardisation as well to make sure that everyone is clear about the regulations and requirements and what their role is within these. So, final area that we'll be looking at for the approval is around quality assurance. So we'll be making sure that we've got systems in place to carry out file checks to make sure that the information held is correct, up to date and accurate, and those portfolio checks as well as an ongoing process. So I've already mentioned the formative and summative assessment. So that's the IQA, Internal Quality Assurer, who will be carrying out those, and we'll make sure that the sampling plans are in place and clear and easy to follow, so that those quality assurance processes can happen throughout the qualification. And as I mentioned earlier, this will all lead through to standardisation to make sure that all of our assessors, IQAs, are working to the same standards, interpreting them in the same way, and applying these qualification specifications fairly and accurately. So we will hold regular standardisation meetings, and we will keep minutes or recordings of those as we go through as evidence.
Okay.
So that's the pre-approval process, and as I say, Larry's already working hard on this and I'm supporting to make sure that all of these elements are in place to support the approval. So once that's happened, we then need to think about the learner journey. So we've got a flow chart here which explains the key stages of a learner journey, and I'm just going to touch on these now for you so you're aware of the stages, and then we're going to look at some of these in a little bit more depth. So the first stage that we need to focus on is enrolment. So we're going to be thinking about the initial advice and guidance we can provide to the learners, information about the course, the qualification, how it will work, what the time commitment is, and we can talk about their prior learning and how this will impact their journey. We can agree how many hours they'll be studying each week, and then negotiate start and end dates accordingly so that everyone's working to the same time frame. And at this point, we can then look at creating the learner onto Laser, which is our learner management system. So there's a learner record there. At this point, you will allocate the course that they'll be studying and schedule the first progress review, so that we've got clear review dates planned throughout the learner journey. And again, I'll touch on that in a little bit more later. Then we can move on to the induction stage. So we carry out a formal induction with the learner. So this is going to cover two different areas really. There'll be how they can log into Laser and use this for recording their learning and use it as their sort of e-portfolio to gather evidence. And you'll also carry out the formal induction into the qualification, the awarding body requirements, and you can provide them with their welcome pack at that stage. At this point, once your learner's gone through that process, there's actually an About You survey on the learner platform, and this will allow you to capture a little bit more information about them, their prior learning, their knowledge, their experience, and so that you get a little bit more information about that learner. There's also a learner satisfaction survey around the induction to make sure that they got all the information that they needed from it and that they feel confident as to what they're enrolling onto and what their requirements are. So that's the induction stage, and then they can move on to the learning, which is obviously the fun bit. So from an administrative point of view, we need to make sure that the learner's registered with the awarding body and that that happens in a timely manner. And then your learner can work through the online learning modules, and I'll show you a little bit more about how that's broken down in a minute because there's some fabulous resources on there. But each assessor might have their own resources or learning materials that they want to bring to the delivery, and that's great too. So we'd encourage the tutors, the assessors, to upload additional information into the library function on the online system, and I'll show you how easy that is to do in a little bit. So on a monthly basis, the assessor is going to be in touch with the learner and you'll create monthly work plans so that the learner has a focus for that month. What parts of learning do they need to do? What bits of evidence do they need to create for their portfolio? And everyone's got a time frame. So we've got some smart targets going on in there so we can give them specific things to work on to keep them focused, to keep them on track with their learning and with their portfolio building throughout their journey. And then on a quarterly basis, this will then amalgamate up into a formal progress review. So you can use your evidence from the work plans that you've created on a monthly basis to check your learners engaging, that they're on track. If they're not, then you can come up with targets to help them get back on track and what they need to do. Or you can look at, if they're ahead of it, how you can provide that stretch and challenge for the learner. So before they complete their very first progress review, there's actually an ongoing survey on the learner platform, and they can complete this survey to talk about how they're feeling with their learning, with their journey, how they're finding it. And then you can review this as part of that first progress review to make sure that the learner's on track and to flag up any concerns that they may have. So this will be repeated on a monthly or a quarterly basis throughout the learner journey. And as part of that, you would then look at the assessment stage. So this is that portfolio building element. So they will be bringing different examples of evidence, and there's a lot of different assessment methods that can be used for the qualification. And all of that will be brought together in their e-portfolio. Now, obviously, if learners aren't confident with using an e-portfolio, then they do have the option to use a paper-based option instead. However, we'd encourage that e-portfolio through this learner system because it'll allow you to tick off their progress and identify any gaps as we go through, so we can carry out a gap analysis and identify any elements of the qualification that we still need additional for. And it means that the IQA and the EQA can both carry out their sampling through the e-portfolio system much more easily and in a much more timely manner. It doesn't mean that we need a huge portfolio bringing back to us into the office so that we can sit down and sample. We can carry out that formative sampling as we go through the process. And that's what's going to help us ensure that high quality of delivery and assessment throughout the learner journey and make sure they're getting the best possible qualification that they can. So that takes you through the key elements of the learner journey up until the point at which they've done their assessment. At the end, they should have a complete portfolio which the IQA can sign off, and then that'll be ready for the EQA to sample, and then we can talk about progression opportunities. So there's a completion satisfaction survey you can complete in the learner system, and then we can talk about any further progression opportunities in terms of different courses and qualifications that they might want to progress on to. So these are the key stages of the learner journey. And throughout, I've been talking a lot about the learner management system. So I'm going to talk you through now a little demonstration of LASER, which is our learner management system. So I'm going to touch on how to create a learner, how to access those learning materials, to access the library as well, and then the guidance documents that are within the LASER system that will support you as part of doing this. Now, I've mentioned also work plans and progress reviews, but when we get to that stage, I'm going to go through in a little bit more detail how to create the work plans and the progress reviews with the learner. So I'm not going to actually cover the ins and outs of that today. So if we navigate ourselves then into LASER, which is our learner management system, there is a specific login here for KJD, and we'll share this login with you. So we click on login and input our username. So the usernames are set up in the same format. So it's first name, in this case Gillian, .kjd.admin. And then when we set up the assessor login, it will be gillian.kjd.assessor. Input a password and login. So nice and simple format so that it's always going to be easy to log in and remember, and you know which role you're clearly going into. So hopefully you can see my screen there. The layout is actually quite straightforward. So a lot of your navigation is on the left-hand side here. You can see the menu that you can go through for the different options. And then you've got your overview on the front page here. So the first one that I'm going to take you to is learners. So on the left-hand side here, we're going to click on learners. And this will bring up details of any learners that we've already created. So Janet, we've already got a login here for you. And the first thing I'm going to show you is how to add a new learner. So very simple process. We come up to here to add a new learner. And all we're going to do is fill in the key information here. So we're going to put first name. So I'll do a quick demo here. So first name and surname. Oh, I have to be taking the box. And then we're going to input a username. So this is going to be unique to the learner. So we are going to go with a format of first name dot company initials. So we go with KJD. And then you put in their unique email address. Now, we don't need to input the funding provider at this stage, although if we do get funding down the line, then we will be inputting this. And then we create a password for them. So for this system, if you put change me 123, then it will prompt the learner to change their password when they first log in. And then we can make sure that they're using a nice secure password, and we can ensure that we're keeping that GDPR requirement in check. So once we've created the learner basics there, you click on save. I won't do it because it will create an extra record at the minute. And then what you'll get is your learner pop up here. So you can see we've registered yourself, Janet, as a learner. And if you scroll across to the right, there's an edit button. So once you've created the basics for your learner, you can then click on edit, and you'll see what we've set them up with in terms of first name, surname, email address. Got their username here. And then this is where you assign the courses. So if you go down to assignment, click on the drop down menu, you can pick which course you're going to be enrolling that learner onto. So in this case, we've got you onto the Java, so the assessor's qualification, but you can pick the level 3 diploma in adult care or the level 5 as appropriate. At this point, you would then input the start date and the end date that you've agreed with your learner. So this would have come out of that initial learner journey stage, so the kind of enrolment induction stage where you've done your IAG, your information, advice and guidance, and you've established your start and end dates. And then you would scroll down and you would select a manager. Now at the minute, there's no manager showing, so we need to go and create one, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And this would be the learners manager at the employer. So we know as part of the journey who would be contacting, who would be supporting that learner throughout their learner journey to make sure they're getting sufficient workplace evidence and experience. So you would click on save at that point, and then we can scroll down and you can see here we've got the section on progress reviews. And at this point you would schedule the first progress review. Now we've said we're going to have progress reviews on a quarterly basis. So we need to make sure that you pick a date in 3 months' time to carry out that first formal progress review, and then you can save that. And at this point in time, that's all you need to do to set your learner up onto the system. Okay. So if you click on your learner, you can actually see the details of the learner, and you'll be able to then view their activity logs, so how often they've logged in, what learning they've been doing, what they've been engaging with. You'd be able to upload any evidence for the learner. So that might be if you've done an observation on that learner as an assessor, it could be uploaded here. And you can carry out a gap analysis. So if they've been doing their learning, they've carried out some assessment activities, you can run a gap analysis. But again, I'm going to cover this in a lot more detail on a future session. But I just wanted to give you that quick overview. And once you've actually scheduled in the first progress review, you can then track the progress reviews from here, how many have taken place, what was agreed, what targets were set, and then when you're scheduling next reviews. So this is how you manage your learners. But the other areas I wanted to cover off with you is the learning materials and how you can upload evidence. So if we go into the library, at the minute there's nothing in here, but you can actually create folders for the different qualifications that you're going to be doing. So for example, if I create a new folder now, it'll ask me for a name. So I'm going to put in pre-approval briefing. And I'm allocating it for all courses and all units to be able to view, and I'm going to save it. And now I've got a folder here. So if I click into this, I can then upload a new file within that. So for example, if I go to this, I can actually upload the PowerPoint that we were using this morning. So let me quickly navigate to this. And it's as simple as that, and I can click on upload. And there you can see the PowerPoint that we were looking at this morning has been uploaded. Everyone can access that through the library. So if your tutors do actually have materials for the qualification that they're assessing and supporting that they want to upload of their own, it's really quick and easy to do that within the library, and we can keep that in folders dedicated for each qualification. We mentioned the guidance section. So there are lots of guides created by Laser to help you navigate the system and carry out key functions. So there might be information for the learner, so how they can access their work plans. And these work plans are the monthly reviews that we're doing with the learner to keep them on track, to give them that focus, so they know what learning to carry out, what assessment we're expecting, make sure that they're on track. There's also information on how you can create a manager, and I'm going to show you that one in just a moment. There's guidance on adding a new learner, which obviously I've been through with you as well, and other sort of areas there as well. And they've got some nice little videos at the bottom, which will take you through how to do key tasks as well. So this is all in that guidance section. So we mentioned about creating a manager so that you can allocate your learner to a manager. So I'm going to go into the manager section on the left hand side here, and we can see at the minute we've got no managers set up. So I'm going to click on add a manager, and again, exactly in the same way as we did for adding a learner, we could add in the name, the username and email address and the workplace name, and then that person will appear. Or if you've already set up a workplace, then you can actually pick the workplace from here. So you can either type it in there, or if it's one you've already used before and it's a different manager within the same workplace, you can select them from the list, create that password and then save. And then when you go to allocate that learner in the learner section, their manager will be there for you to allocate them to. So for today, they're the key areas I wanted to talk around the admin. The only other section I want to show you is the courses section. So this is where you will find the learning that your learner will be working through. So I know that one of the courses you're going to be delivering is the Level 3 Diploma in Adult Care. So if we click on this course, you can actually see that the course is made up of 91 units, and your learner can actually work through these areas. So let's pick this first one, and it will load the lesson, and this will be what your learner can see from their login side. So you can see there's a whole range of different resources available. So it starts off with a little tutorial video. It will then give you reading materials. So it'll be useful documents to read. It might be sections of a book or reference material that they should be reading through. So this will be part of their additional reading requirements. And then they have presentations, interactive quizzes, case studies, so like a good practice example, how the learner can produce evidence opportunities for their portfolios, and then the extended learning, so a bit of stretch and challenge for your learner. So think and challenge areas there. So as you're creating your work plans for your learner, then you will say, right, I want you to go into this first lesson and I want you to cover these areas by this date. So you're giving them a focus to actually work towards, and that's what's going to help keep them on track. And then, as I say, on that quarterly basis, you'll do your progress reviews to actually pull that together. So each of the different modules will have a similar feel to them so that the learner knows what they're working through. And this will provide a lot of the learning, and then your assessors can actually then top that up with the different materials that they have of their own as well. So those are the key areas that I wanted to share with you today. We've gone through the learner management system, so you can see the essentials of that. And we've looked at the how to create a learner and how to access the documents to support that. So hopefully that's given you a good overview of the approval process and the quality management systems we're going to make sure are in place to ensure that we're meeting all the different stakeholder requirements for these qualifications. So thank you for your time. I'm going to pause the recording there, and then if we have any questions, we can cover those off.